Adam Souse here for Rebel News, and I'm on location in Falconridge, Calgary, where on Saturday a conflict erupted into a veritable melee with as many as 150 people armed engaging in conflict. Many people in Calgary were shocked to see a tweet come out from the police that read as follows: "Violent conflict in Falconridge. At approximately 5 p.m. today, Saturday, September 2nd, 2023, officers responded to the northeast community of Falconridge for reports of two groups engaged in violence. It is believed up to 150 people were initially involved. Upon arrival, officers separated the groups and engaged in conflict and de-escalated the situation, as many of those involved were brandishing weapons. The CPS considers this to be a serious event and has dedicated resources to keep the peace. This is not a protest, this is a violent conflict between two groups with opposing views. We are working with our city partners to ensure public safety and are actively investigating all associated criminal activity, including violence and property damage. We are asking all Calgarians to avoid the community of Falconridge for the time being in the areas that our officers are addressing. Our primary goal is to ensure public safety. We are working with the involved groups to maintain peace. We want to reassure Calgarians that the appropriate resources are available and engaged to maintain control of the situation, and we expect a peaceful resolution." This is the latest in a series of violent such events that have erupted into conflict everywhere from Israel to Toronto and now in the streets of Calgary, Alberta, and they are very often hinged or centered around Eritrean community events or gatherings. Eritrea is an East African nation, a one-party nation whose government opposes the formation and organization of opposition parties. It is a country whose president, Isaias Afwerki, has not faced an election since the country gained independence in 1993. While the politics are clearly nuanced, the crux of it, as best we can understand, is that the Eritrean community is staunchly divided between people who support the current government and those who are strongly opposed to it. Effectively, what we are seeing is minor Eritrean civil wars erupting, but instead of erupting on the streets of Eritrea, they're erupting on the streets of cities like Calgary.
प्लीज़ करो भाजी कॉल दीदी भी कर दे बेसिके
Part of the real story here, though, is the lack of information available, at least up until the point of filming this video. There's been no real statements from city officials. Police have simply said they're investigating this. Even journalists seem to bury the lead, the fact of the communities that are involved in this conflict. Well down within the article, you have to read near to the bottom of the page to find out what is really going on. Plus, there's the fact of the soft hands approach from authorities. We've seen police right across this country arresting pastors, trampling grandmas, and assaulting journalists, but now as escalation arises and there's literally violence in the streets, by contrast to the very peaceful protests, perhaps the most peaceful protests in human history, the police now suddenly have a great respect for these groups, and while they're taking a hands-off approach. That is shocking. We are going to be investigating the story, make no mistake, and getting to the bottom of it. The truly shocking thing, though, as I arrived today, folks in this area, the businesses that were affected, there's damage, broken windows, glass all over. Well, those folks, they shared with me a great deal of information, but they're not willing to come on camera. They fear there may be reprisals from this community, and the footage they shared with me was absolutely shocking. There were folks coming out into the streets with equipment on, helmets, borderline armor. They had sticks, weapons that they planned. And the other thing that they showed me, something that was being thrown, this is a plumbing item that was purchased brand new. They had big bags of these, a heavy metal pipe, and what they were doing, they were throwing these at businesses and throwing them at each other, but they had new equipment, and this was an orchestrated, planned event. This wasn't simply an escalation like we've seen at some other Eritrean festivities. This was a planned conflict that took place, and the local businesses, well, they have paid the price for it. Now, police even went so far, despite this massive planned physical conflict, to put out a tweet saying that they support people's rights to gather. Well, where was that encouragement for rights to protest and freedom of assembly throughout COVID-19? Those rights went away awfully quickly, just as soon as politicians decided. But here, in the face of this conflict, despite authorities saying that this was not a peaceful protest or a legal protest, they make the effort to post that questionable conduct indeed, and conduct that merits investigation. At this point, we don't know if there are gang elements or terrorist elements at play, but we do know that groups divided within the same Eritrean community engaged in conflict on a scale that we simply do not see in this country on a common basis. This is not the type of thing that we grew up seeing in Calgary. Conflicts from other parts of the world spilling over into our streets. This is devastating. When I saw that tweet, when folks in Calgary saw that tweet, it felt absolutely surreal. And the shocking thing is, with a lack of statement beyond the fact that authorities are investigating, we don't even know if people have been arrested yet. arrested after massive conflicts with ample video evidence. There hasn't been a clear-cut, yes, people are being charged, people are being taken in. That is the sort of response that we need on something this critical, on something this massive. This simply cannot happen in Calgary streets. The current fall into disarray and disorder that has happened under soft policing must put an end to it. And as we know, Alberta officials, Alberta authorities, and the Alberta government has said that this is going to change. But if they don't take action on this matter, on this serious armed conflicts within the streets of this city, how are we to believe that they're getting serious on crime and standing up for law and order? Unfortunately, right now, all we have is far more questions than answers, but we are going to get to the bottom of this. We're going to be investigating this in details, reaching out and pressuring authorities and Calgary Police Service for a lengthy and detailed response as to what is being done to ensure that this doesn't happen again, and that the folks in this community, the folks who live here, can feel safe, not threatened, and not see damages occurring to their businesses on a regular basis. Many of them saying that conflicts like this have actually arisen before, back in fall. So we're going to be investigating that as well and getting to the bottom of the story, telling the other side of the story as no one but Rebel News can. So stay tuned at rebelnews.com. And as always, I want to thank you all so much for tuning in. For Rebel News, I'm Adam Sos. You guys know that you can trust Rebel News to tell the other side of the story and ask the important questions on stories like this, on all stories. In fact, that is precisely what we do, but we count on your support to do it. We don't take big government handouts, so I'm encouraging you to consider subscribing to Rebel News Plus. It keeps us out here working, helps us pay the bills, helps us keep the lights on, but you don't just get nothing for that. In fact, you get a lot for that. You get access to some incredible content, including the Ezra Levant Show with our Rebel Commander Ezra Levant, the Gun Show with our Chief Reporter Sheila Gunn Reid, plus access to our incredible lineup of documentaries that you can see nowhere else. So consider subscribing to Rebel News Plus now.